California Forever is a company that I founded 8 years ago to build the next great American city. And when I say the next great American city, I mean all of the things that you would find in one of the great cities in America. And so our focus has been on manufacturing and then more recently on shipbuilding. And so as of now, the city includes the proposed Solano shipyard, which would become the biggest shipbuilding complex in America, the Solano Foundry, which is an advanced manufacturing park that we rolled out recently, and then incredible neighborhoods around it with 175,000 homes downtown, really focused on traditional American urbanism, like you would find in San Francisco or Philadelphia or Chicago. And we're really doing this to create a place where California can build again. And so we're doing this to bring back a lot of the legacy that the state used to have and solve some of the biggest issues that California is dealing with. Place where companies can stay and grow in California, place where the next generation of Californians can afford to buy a home, and a place that brings back this sense of optimism that the state used to have that we would love to come back.
So a bit practical, solving some problems that the state and the nation face, and then a bit of symbolism on top of that.
100%.
Yeah,
that's a good way to put it.
And how many people? What's the goal for how many people would live here?
Yeah, so we own about 68,000 acres. So that's about almost 110 square miles. For context, that's about 2.5 times the size of San Francisco. It's 5 times bigger than the island of Manhattan, 70% bigger than Washington, D.C. And the proposal for the city, which is on about 15,000 acres of that in the middle, is for 400,000 people. And then the land around that is used for advanced manufacturing, it's used for shipbuilding. There's a lot of land that right now is in a long-term strategic reserve, which could be used for energy generation. And then we would surround the entirety of that with a green belt of open space and agriculture. And so really allows us to master plan the entire area and do it right. We are at the same time the most obvious and at least as of 2 years ago, the most controversial startups in California. And we're doing the things that companies have done for a long, long time. We're building a new city. And so all American cities are basically new cities, at least by the standard of the world, right? I mean, we've been building cities for 10,000 years, and all American cities are basically less than 300 years old. And in California, mostly less than 100 years old. And so about 8 years ago at this point, I set out to create a place where California could build again and build a city, and that city could include manufacturing and homes and offices, and today increasingly shipbuilding. But in some sense, the oldest idea in the world, which is when we run out of places to build, we should find a piece of land that isn't particularly good for agriculture or anything else in a good location and build there. And we've been able to find what I thought and what I think has been proven to be probably the best place to do this in America when you look at all of the different factors.
And just to help locate people, it's nearish Napa, nearish San Francisco, help center us.
Yeah, I mean, we are basically in the middle of this, what has become the Northern California mega region. So this whole area between Sacramento and San Jose, actually between Tahoe and San Jose really, has become this mega region. There's about 14 million people who live in that region. If it was a state,
40.
1/4. 14. If it was a state, it would be the 7th largest state in America. And we are in the heart of it. And so we are basically equidistant to San Francisco and to Sacramento. So San Francisco, Silicon Valley is an hour 20 from here. Sacramento is about an hour to the north. And then we are from here, we are about 35 minutes east of Napa. So it's in the very heart of this region, at this intersection of air and water and rail. And so the property that we own is, on the one side, we have Travis Air Force Base, one of the biggest military installations in America, at least in terms of the Air Force. We're obviously on the water, on the San Francisco Bay. And so it's this really interesting crossroads of Northern California where it all comes together. And by historical accident, there happens to be 100 square miles here that is a really great place to build, and we haven't built it yet. And so it's kind of a miracle that the place even exists.
Yeah, I mean, in this, like when you look at, I mean, it's been farmland historically, or
Grazing land.
Grazing land.
Grazing
Yeah,
land,
yeah, because it's not the prime farmland. I mean, this is
Yeah, I mean, people have tried to grow crops here, and generally it hasn't worked. And so the soil is, my understanding is the soil is very heavy. There's a lot of clay in it, and so it doesn't really support crops. And so it's basically grazing land. It looks like the kind of it's quintessentially Californian. It looks like the hills that you drive through on the I-5 when you go from Sacramento to LA.
And I want to get into some of the evolution of this idea. I mean, you mentioned you've been at it for 8 years. Because now the political climate has changed. Some things have changed, and you guys are talking about manufacturing and shipbuilding, and we're going to get into all that. When you first started out 8 years ago, was that fully the vision, or did you more want to just make a more modern, family-friendly type city in a region where we just can't seem to build any houses, and you saw it as like an opportunity to make, kind of like an idealized community? Or what was the very original vision?
Yeah, I mean, the original vision was to create a place in California where you could build, and where you could build anything. And the reason for why, going back all the way to 2016, I decided that we would acquire as much land as we could, is that the idea is you wouldn't necessarily even know what you want to build. I mean, this is a 40, 50-year build out, right? And you can't exactly predict what you're going to need. And the origin of the idea was when I landed in California in 2013, 2014. And at the time, there were 3 distinct things that it was very clear that we couldn't build in California. We certainly couldn't build housing, but we certainly also couldn't really do manufacturing. I mean, it was the beginning of the onshoring. Hardware startups were beginning to come in. I mean, I think Anduril was founded, 2017, 2016?
Or around there, yeah.
And so that was happening, but it was very clear that you couldn't do that in California. But it was also even just office space. I mean, if you go at it sounds unbelievable, but in 2017, there was a cap on the amount of office space that you could build in San Francisco, and companies legitimately were leaving the Bay Area because people couldn't afford to live there and they couldn't build offices. And so the idea was, if we can acquire this extremely strategic landholding, then you won't always predict what you want to build there. But because of where it is and all of the access that it has, it will very likely support whatever we need to build. And that's kind of been proven out, for example, with the shipbuilding component of it, where that's become a thing in the last 2 years. When we bought the property, I knew that I'd be buying a bunch of land on Deepwater Ship Channel, and I was like, well, maybe we'll build a port there one day, or who knows. But shipbuilding was on my radar 8 years ago. But when it popped out, we actually had a place where you could do it really well.
Yeah.